It is Friday, 5th of April, 2024, 11:36 a.m. I'm going to try to keep it really quick. One thing I've been thinking about is how liberal culture, the left-wing culture, is emasculating. That doesn't mean I'm talking about the culture, not the actual values. But what the thing I'm trying to say is I've been living in this country, or at least in this region that's more left wing, and in a university that's more left wing. And the issue is that it is true that for centuries, a lot of the western side of Earth has been the culture has been dominated or centered around, maybe that's a better word, centered around white males, and not just that centered around, but it's also done in a way to suppress other races and sexes. I understand that, but the way people interpret and then behave accordingly is to just say being a man is bad, being white is bad. Um, and it's not just, words, it's practices, behaviors, certain subtle subconscious acts and values, which is hard to describe. Uh, it, there's this whole air of saying being born a man is bad, you know, which is very weird. Um, and it's something that I've been aware of, but I wasn't sure how truthful it seemed. But then what really made me realize what I'm seeing is actually true, not just my like delusion, because it the whole air makes me feel delusional as well because it's become the norm that men are bad. But it's not, the issue is that, um, oh no, the thing that made me realize is that other people are saying it, basically. There seems to be a data recently that men are becoming more conservative while women are being more liberal. I want to touch on that a bit later, but one of the reasons being that liberal culture seems to demean men. But yeah. And then the other thing was that I was talking to someone, and then she was talking about her brother who left the university I'm going to right now, and said that she apparently said that he really didn't like the school because there was a lack of like men energy. I thought I was, you know, being too, I don't want to say misogynist, but something along the lines of that. I thought I was being too scared to offend people in thinking that. But then it's kind of true. I'm glad someone else said it because until then I didn't fully believe in myself. But it's true. And I think there's nothing wrong with menness. It's just that somehow menness is strictly associated with the suppressive, oppressive history of, you know, the male dominated culture, um, which is not. I think a lot of the concept of power, or maybe a lot of the concept of power and like competitiveness, like confidence, or like just a sort of like push of power, I think is a sort of madness, but it doesn't have to be manifested in the form of a hegemonic, uh, value that oppresses others. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe there's this whole deeper side to it, but I'm afraid to touch it because I'm afraid to offend or go into a territory that's too taboo. I don't know. But the other point, I made this point before, is the idea that men are becoming more conservative and women are becoming more liberal, at least in the U.S., which absolutely doesn't make sense because it's this trend I keep seeing where people identify too much with either their left wing or right wing, but all the values in left wing aren't the only I would say the only like rope that ties all the liberal values together is that they're just liberal. They're moving away from the current, you know, economy or zeitgeist or politics. But it doesn't. There could be a society that has been pro-choice, but going into more socialist values is more liberal, if that makes sense. It's just that my point is that people seem to agree with one aspect of liberalism and then basically agree with everything else around it because it's in the same net labeled as liberalism. And then they make strong identity connection around it because also with, being with people around them that are also liberal and doing certain activities that are labeled as liberal and so on. And then conservative being more like the Andrew Tate-esque values, which doesn't make sense. I think a lot of conservative values could be good. It's just that somehow it's not just politics, but like identity has been dichotomized. When liberalism and conservatism, a lot of how things fit are arbitrary, They're just based on, it just happened to be the current political mindset of a region or not. And I hope things change. Because, like, for example, what Japan does, I think, is great, is valuing certain conservative ideals in the sense that it values tradition, it values honor, architecture of old architecture, but is integrated with modern architecture that could surround it. Like in the middle of a super modernized street or neighborhood, you would find a small shrine that is been there since like the 1500s. It's like that. People seem to be programmed to be no to the opposing values, not opposing values, no to the opposing wing, and identify so much of it. It's just weird. Gender, I don't think the way it is, well, I understand how gender can come into play with politics, right? But something like gay rights or like feminism shouldn't even be a matter of are you conservative or liberal, if that makes sense. You don't have to be a liberal to be a feminist. If you believe in like fundamental values of equal rights, like you don't have to subscribe to that should be beyond just simply being a left wing or right wing. And then just because you believe in feminism doesn't mean you have to believe in socialism, or communism, if you want to go extreme. like the thing is, like, there's so many like negative aspects about capitalism that's been written up uh, from a left wing's perspective. But the thing is, like, there is value in capitalism as well, I think. And just that I think it's more to do with the fact that we have not reached a good political economic system that can punish exploiters, punish bad people in a natural process, so to speak. Because even with socialism, all you need is a bad politician who would not distribute uh, money equally, and then it's exploitation all over again. So it's just like even monarchies, when they had good kings, it worked. You know, like who's that? Who's that guy? Or emperor? Not Aristotle, but or that there was a monarch in China who was like really good, right? The point is, like, it could be rare, but even Japanese emperors, I think that's a pretty different approach, though. But the whole point is that maybe the conclusion I want to get to is, well, one, my initial complaint is that the liberal culture, not the values that come with it, but how people behave, is very emasculating, very demeaning towards men and masculinity. And I think part of the issue I have been facing is how emasculated I've become living here. And I don't know what masculinity is anymore. Well, a lot of the things that I found, like, valuable in men seems to be offensive, or seems to, just associated with being offensive and being just bad, being part of this oppressive history. So I've been trying to dig what masculinity is in the face of this culture, but then I realized that's not really masculinity. I don't know what it is anymore. And it was already a very ambiguous, hard to describe thing anyways, and now I don't know. I think one of the ways I could try to rediscover is the Japanese culture. I think the way masculinity is presented, at least in certain disciplines, like in like martial arts, for example, or certain work, they do. It's not explicitly described, but they do exude a sort of masculinity that's valuable. So maybe I can look into that. I don't know. But the whole point is, but then even then, I'm thinking about it's valuable because it's hard to find something that's won't be easily offensive. Possibly, I'm not sure. See, it's like my mind has been like cursed with looking at every single thing and seeing what would be offensive, what would be not, what would get me in trouble. I think being so financially insecure and having like no stability compounds of that, because if I'm being offensive, if I get canceled, if I do something that the public doesn't like, um, they have so much power over me because I can't stand on my own 2 feet. Like physically. Oh, physically I still can, but I don't know. It's just a very difficult thing to do nowadays, I feel. And then the whole point with left wing, right wing. I think so much stuff is processed in absolutes, and I just, you know, I wish things were more malleable. Things were more open-minded about the other side, because even with pro-choice, I am pro-choice. But coming from a religious background, I can understand the sentiment of pro-life because of how much, you know, sacred life is, like the moment of conception. That's not just, you know, a sperm and an egg. That's like a God gifting you a soul. And then for humans to be able to remove that, that is extremely sacrilegious. And like from a atheist scientist perspective, that's like I don't believe that shit. But I can respect and understand that sentiment because I used to have that. And I think it's so easy to push away. And the thing is, like, I really understand the fact that it's the woman, it's a woman's body. They should have the choice, not the government. But then also, the point is that the baby that could be born has no representative, cannot be autonomous enough to defend their own life. So it's the government that takes over for the baby to save the baby's life. The thing is, it's just hard to come to an agreement because from both sides' perspective, they're absolutely correct. But people can't see that. And I guess me posing this like negative dialectical perspective on abortion rights isn't a realistic answer because there needs to be an answer. But I just feel like I wish people could try to just see the other side, because the other side is not trying to behave as a villain because they have the script saying you're acting as a villain. They think they're on the right side. And it's just frustrating that the other side is always the villain. That's it. And I think it's a good point to stop